12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast, episode number 75, part 2. I'm going to go ahead and let Flindt go ahead and finish off where he was, and we'll finish the interview. All right, Flindt, you got the floor.
You got it. So I was talking about the awareness piece of fentanyl and what we've been doing in the United States. And, you know, there's still a huge push on the awareness piece. But I'm a firm believer right now that we are past that awareness or getting close to it. You know, here in the state of California, Governor Newsom just signed a bill that's going to allow $5 million for 6 different counties in the state to continue with the awareness piece. Now, first of all, we've got to give Newsom credit where credit's due, that he did sign this bill. It still has to pass the legislature. It still has to get past the Senate in order for everybody to get their money. But look, first of all, $5 million is pocket change for the state of California. Mm-hmm. And will it have an effect? Yes. But where I think we are failing today is we are not talking enough about treatment. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, and again, I am a huge proponent of Narcan, huge proponent of it. Years ago, I was not. Okay. But today, because of fentanyl, I am. Everybody needs to have it. It's like an EpiPen or a fire extinguisher that you have in your home. Maybe your kid's not using or your loved one's not using, but maybe they bring somebody over that is, and you don't know it, and that person goes into an overdose. At least you have that there. Yeah. We are still thousands of miles away from getting Narcan in the places we need to get it in. Schools are still not all on board with this. Nurses stations may have it, but I want it in every classroom, because what happens if that classroom is on the other side of the campus and somebody goes into an overdose? They may not have the time to get there. And remember, Narcan's a Band-Aid. It does not, people have to understand that is to reverse the opioid overdose, period. It has no other function. It's not going to get you clean. It's certainly not going to get you sober, but it's going to save your life if you get to them in time. So maybe that person does have a chance. But we're not talking enough about treatment. And Kenneth, I think that falls into every category of substance use: alcohol, methamphetamine, cocaine, LSD, whatever it is. Because insurance companies are not paying treatment centers for cocaine detoxes or methamphetamine detoxes. They will for alcohol and opioids, but not for those two substances. Look, when somebody goes into a hospital after an overdose, and if they survive, what is that hospital doing to help that individual? They're not. They're releasing them 12 hours later, whatever it is. And Narcan does one thing really well. It wipes out the opioid in our system. And what does that mean? That means it throws us right into immediate detox. I know kids that have run out of the hospital to the dealer's house one more time to use. So we're not addressing the treatment issue. Not everybody has the right insurance for treatment. A lot of people have Medi-Cal or some sort of government-aided insurance. Yeah, private treatment centers do not take that because they don't pay enough. We have to fix the treatment system, or else we're still going to just stay in this mess that we've been in for so long, because there is no cure for addiction. There isn't. It's manageable. You're doing fantastic in your recovery. I'm doing fantastic in my recovery. But my friend, it's because we've got some time under our belts, okay? We're taking it serious. When a lot of these kids out there, how do you tell a kid that they when they're 19 have overdosed on fentanyl, that they can't go into a bar when they turn 21? And let me just give you a little example of why I'm such a hard ass when it comes to this stuff. Let's say, I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm an opiate addict, right? Okay. So I didn't go into a bar for 4 years in the first 4 years of my recovery. Not to have dinner, nothing. Not to meet somebody, nothing. So I'm 6 months clean and sober off of opiates. I walk into a bar and let's say I'm single. I'm not married, nothing. I walk into that bar just to have one cocktail because I want to feel like a normal 21-year-old man. And I walk in there and I see this young lady sitting over there, okay, with the belly button ring, and she's cute. And I start talking to her and she sits down and we have a couple of more drinks. Again, we're doing nothing wrong. We're doing absolutely nothing wrong. But she has no idea that I'm in recovery from opiates. And she reaches in her pocket and she pulls out an M30 pill or an Oxycontin and she slides it across the table and goes, hey, you want to go outside and share this with me? Let me tell you something, my friend, as an opiate addict, as one that knows,
You're gonna take it. You're gonna go
my focus is on that pill.
Yeah, you're sure you're gonna forget about anything else.
And her too. I'm gonna forget about her too, and where that's leading. Okay, because I want that pill. We have to learn how to recognize those traps. We have to learn how not to even get into those traps to begin with. So we've got a lot of work to do on the treatment side of this thing. I'm also a firm believer that, and I know some people will disagree with me on this. Look, I'm a firm believer. We've got to go after the drug dealers. We've got to go after China. China's manufacturing this crap. They're shipping it into Mexico. It's coming over our borders, and we're getting nailed with it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, but it's the powers that be. You know what I'm saying? If they know that it is, being manufactured over there or anywhere, and you know what I'm saying, they have to put a stop to it in terms of negotiations with any other type of businesses. It has to be to where it's like, okay, if we know this is what's taking us out in our own country, then there's no ties, there's no nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because if you, like you said, it's a funneling system. Okay, we know that, okay, stuff is being manufactured here, stuff is being manufactured there, then it's being moved to the US, then it's getting in the hands of a variety of ages of, kids, young adults, and those that are our ages. And so it's one of those things where we have to, we have to take this a little bit more serious. And it's the same way like what they did back in the 20s about prohibition. I mean, you have to really, not to use the word, but crack down on the system, then you have to stop it. But then also too, you look at it as, and this is my personal opinion, is that they know that this is money. This is money that's being made, and there's so many different, people, and it's sad to say, but there's investors that this, you know what I'm saying? And not to put out one person and the other person, there's people that see, okay, this may be taking, maybe taking the lives of individuals, but it's also putting money in somebody's pocket. Whose pocket is it? We just don't know, but somebody's making a true profit off of this.
I couldn't agree more with you. I could not agree more with you. But look, there are, and I got this from a direct source. There are, and this is an absolute fact. There are less than 5,000 DEA agents in the world assigned to working the fentanyl problem. I want you to think about that for a second. That number is ridiculously low. Ridiculously low. Look, when you're fighting a dragon, you don't go in and cut off the tail first. You go and cut off the head.
Yeah. yes, indeed. Because that controls everything.
That controls it all.
Yeah.
So at some point, again, a lot of people argue with me on this. We have to educate our way out of this and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we do. I get that. Yes, we do. But how much more are we going to allow these people to keep bringing this stuff in? you know, I've even had people say, well, you know what, look, there was a bust here, I don't know, I think it was a week and a half ago, where the law enforcement got something like 250,000 fentanyl pills off the street.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people out there even saying, well, that's just a waste of time. Well,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
That's going to save a few people from possibly dying.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that a waste of time and money and energy and all of that? It's not. And I'd love, you know what, and I'd love to get you on our show too, because I'd love to get your opinion on harm reduction,
For
on
sure.
on long-term harm reduction, because I'm against long-term harm reduction. I'm for short-term, but that's a conversation for another day.
For sure.
But
I would be more than honored to come on your podcast. All you gotta do is let me know.
you got it.
Yeah, I'm definitely want to, share some things,
Good.
like I said,
That's a done deal. I'm going to have my guy Jason reach out to you, man. We're going to do it.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, I think, I mean, you've touched on it, but I wanted to ask this specifically, like, why do you think, like, today, like I said, you grew up in an era, or you were heavy into using in the 80s and 90s where technology wasn't there. And I'm not shooting you down, because I grew up and didn't have technology even in as an adolescent. But why, like, today? Because like I said, kids can get their hands on basically, it's more accessible,
Sure.
I would say, today than what it was 20 years ago or 30. I graduated high school 26 years ago.
Right.
And was it, 26? Yeah, 26 years. And it's like some of this stuff it's new to me today, because I'm kind of like, I'm new to this, because like I said, I was that athlete. Yes, I will say, yeah, I smoked weed. Yes, I drank. But that was the extent of it. Like, I couldn't go anything else. Did I see cocaine? Yeah, I saw cocaine at 12 years old. A 12-year-old should not be seeing cocaine, but I saw it. But that's the thing, is that I knew that I'm not going to touch that. But I was curious about marijuana. I was curious about alcohol, but I wasn't curious about the other stuff. And and I don't know if it was because, my parents, they worked so much that they didn't have time to raise me. You know what I mean? Because in a lot of ways, despite the fact of having both parents in the home, I learned on my own a lot of things. And that's the difference now, even today, is that these kids have devices. If they want to learn something, they don't have to go to their parents. They can just literally go to the phones and say, okay, I want this. I want to know that. I want to try this. Okay, you can get these type of things on the black market, to where it's like sometimes they'll mail it in a box and you're like, wait a minute, how did I get this in the mail? But they're able to get it. And to me, it starts in the home. You have to have that. If it's one parent, regardless of if it's a guardian, you got to have those type of conversations, because if you don't, you're going to run into these type of problems. But then also, the parents can't be using themselves and leaving that stuff out in the open, because guess what's going to happen? It's going to be curious. The same thing with me. My dad drank. My dad was in the military. And, whenever he would go overseas, he would come back with these exotic bottles of alcohol. And I'm like, wow, he's got this from the Philippines. Okay, I want to try it, knowing that it was gross and nasty, but it was a fact that I'm drinking something from a totally different country.
Right.
And so I guess, like I said, my question is that how do we have that conversation? I mean, I'm not a parent myself, but I know that if I had kids, that they would know. And they're going to know at an age where their brain capacity is able to function enough to understand that I'm serious about it. Like, I don't want you to go through the stuff that I went through.
Right.
So we have to, like, so how, as a parent yourself, how do you have that conversation? How are you telling people that the stuff is serious today?
Right. First of all, what I tell parents is that you just showed the device, right? Here it is. We all got it right next to us. This device right here, that phone, is as deadly as a 9mm handgun.
Mm-hmm.
They can get it on, they can buy it on Snapchat. It can get delivered right to their home. And you want to know why it comes in a box? Because the United States mail cannot x-ray the packages. FedEx can, the brown truck, whatever it is, UPS, they can x-ray their packages, but the US mail can't. So yeah, just off note there, that's how they get it. But that conversation, look, I put it very plainly to parents these days, because we speak to a lot of parents and to a lot of kids. Get in their business. Don't be afraid, and excuse me for saying this, but don't be afraid of pissing your kid off by having this conversation, because would you rather piss your kid off, or would you rather pick out their coffin? That's what it comes down.
That's very, very true. That's a true statement.
I've been to 26 funerals in the last 4 years, just of the kids that I know that have died from this in our area. And there have been more. This parents, look, most parents today, they don't want to have that conversation. They're afraid to have that conversation because, and I think a lot of times they're afraid because the kid's going to come back and go, well, mom and dad, you smoke pot, when you were in high school and when you were in college, so how does a parent answer that? And my suggestion to them is, don't lie, say, yes, I did. And by the way, I don't anymore. And there's reasons why I don't anymore. And here are the reasons why. Once that kid reaches 21 or 18 or 21, whatever it is, and they're out of the house, they can do whatever they want. But I will tell parents, as long as they're living in your house, and I don't care if they're 50 living in your house, it's your house, it's your rules.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do, because I have people that work for me that found their kids in their beds with their headsets still on playing Xbox, that were dead for 12 hours from an overdose.
Wow.
And when I put it to parents like that, not every, because still there's parents out there going, well, that's not going to happen to my kid, because my kid's going to play baseball for the San Francisco Giants, and my kid's going to be a state senator, and their kid's 16. It's like, no, they're probably not. Meaning you don't have the only kid here that's going to beat this thing. This is a addiction's non-beatable. You can't beat it. You can manage it. You can win it on a daily basis, but you're never going to truly overcome it. Do you know that? Do you remember the series Dr. House MD?
Yeah.
Okay. So and these are what I call blindsided triggers. I could be, sitting at home watching television, and an episode of Dr. House comes on, and he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out that bottle of Vicodin and he shakes it and takes it down. Do you know I still get a charge out of that?
Wow.
Yeah. Now I know where to take that feeling. I know if I ever relapse like that again, I'm going to lose my wife. I'm going to lose my boys. I'm going to lose the organization that I founded. So I know where to take it. But that's the power of that drug, of that drink, of that line, of that other pill, of that methamphetamine. That's the power that stuff holds. Until parents realize and recognize the power that these drugs have, it's not going to change.
Yeah.
And Kenneth, they just can't be afraid to talk to their kid.
Right. Well, and then a lot of times I think what it is too is that it gets to a point where, I guess you say, my generation of parents, sometimes these parents are trying to be friends with their kids over being a parent. And I guess that might be the reason why I haven't had, kids yet, because I had to witness what my friends did as far as how they raised their kids. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, I'm just taking notes. Like, all right, well, I know I won't be doing that. I know I won't be saying that to my child. I'm not going to let my child view certain things. And to me, it's just like, I guess it's preparing me for fatherhood
Sure.
because I didn't have that father figure, despite the fact that my father lived in my house, or I lived in his house for, all the way up until I was 23.
Right.
And so it's kind of one of those things where it's tough. But like you said, I like the point that you said that, parents are saying, like, or maybe they did share with their children, yeah, I tried drugs, yeah, I tried alcohol, but still, like you said, that's still not an excuse for you to go out there and use. Because I'm telling you, hey, I made mistakes. I may have sold stuff. I may have been intimate with someone I had no business being intimate with. I could have contracted any type of STD or got something that was incurable,
Right.
you know. But sometimes you have to be that the disciplinarian and be firm, because like I said, if you're not, guess what? They're gonna sneak out the house. They're gonna
Yep.
go do that stuff. They're gonna go abuse it because they didn't feel the love. They didn't feel like, okay, that they didn't really care too much about me.
Right.
Yeah, I could have been just like that. My parents just said, "Hey, you go do what you want." Like I was 14, they were like, "All right, we're done raising kids." I'm the youngest of five,
Oh,
so my mom was just like, "Hey,
I'm done. She's saying I'm
yeah,
done.
we just want you to get out of school, and everything else will be fine." And and like I said, I kind of just slept my way through high school.
Sure.
Took life a little more serious once I got into college, but
Right.
that's one of those things. But it's tough. It's definitely a hard thing to really, you know like try how how I guess in a way is like, you have to Google it. How do you reach today's, how to reach today's kids, and how can you effectively communicate with them to where they will understand? Yes, go out there, experiment if you have to, but if you experiment, it comes with some consequences.
Well, and again, in your day, and definitely in my day, I mean, my gosh, I was born in 1955. I mean, I still grew up with Andy Griffith and and all that nonsense. But look, experimentation didn't kill us.
Mhm.
Today, experimentation can kill you.
That's the
That's
big.
the key. See, that's the key, and that's the message. One of the messages we try to get across. But I would like to say this one thing too, just to hit that point home for your listeners and parents. Okay, if we got the time.
There you go. You good.
Okay. I tell parents this story. I say, I want you to imagine it's Christmas, and all the relatives are coming over to your house for Christmas Day. And as they walk in the house, people keep pictures of family all over the place. But for the sake of this conversation, you keep your pictures on the piano. Let's say I have a piano. So all, your pictures of aunts and uncles and grandparents and aunts and uncles and blah, blah. And there's the picture of your 16-year-old daughter in her cheerleader outfit at a football game doing a cheer. And it's 2022, because that's when last Christmas was.
Mhm.
So now you fast forward 4 years from now. It's 2026.
Mm.
Everybody's coming over to your house for Christmas again. The pictures are all on the piano. And there they are, aunts, uncles, grandparents, but all their pictures have changed because they've gotten older.
Mm.
And there's the picture of your 16-year-old daughter. That's still the same picture.
Mm.
Because she died of an overdose because you, mom and dad, were afraid to talk to her about this issue. Death is permanent. They're not coming back. She will forever be 16 years old.
Mm.
Do not be afraid to talk to your children about this. Even if they make the mistake and go out and do it, at least you know as a parent that you gave it your best effort.
Yeah.
It's pretty much that simple.
That's all you can do, and that is a great way to close it out, because I didn't even have to say what advice would you give. You definitely hit on it, Flindt. I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I know in December we our schedules are really
Right.
really November and December.
Right.
But like I said, everything happens for a reason. We had an amazing conversation. I got to know you a little bit better. I've shared a
Yep.
few things and look forward for you to join your podcast.
You bet.
But this is what's important, is that it doesn't matter the age. It matters about helping others.
Yes.
Because that's the importance. Because as I mentioned, when we were growing up, people weren't having these conversations.
Right.
Addiction. And so the good thing about it is that there's two people right here that's talking about it openly and not having a problem with talking about it, because it needs to be heard today.
Yes.
And I, like I said, thank you, man. I don't know what else to say, but I appreciate all that you shared tonight. I really
Thank you. Kenneth, thank you for having me. I know our schedules got all screwy, but like you said, there's a time and a place for everything, right? And this was it. I'm following your stuff. I love what you do. I do. I just get I get my high, all right, from seeing younger guys like you and younger women like you that are taking this fight on. Because when I started it, man, I felt like I was on that island all by myself back in 2009. Nobody was talking about this stuff like we are today. And so it does my heart good that guys like you are out there doing it and working it and making a difference. I'm going to have Jason reach out to you. Okay. We're definitely going to get you on our podcast, man. We're going to talk more as this thing goes on.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another wonderful, wonderful episode of 12 Faces of Sober Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a lot of things with 12 Faces of Sober as the new year continues to go on. All I'm trying to do is continue to better myself in the sober community and continue to spread this message that can save lives. And like I said, thank you. Thank you once again for another amazing show. Until next time, this is 12 Faces of Sober.